Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Last week I did a live stream where I answered some questions that people had given me both ahead of time and inside the chat of the live stream. And I was not able to get to all of the questions that people had asked me beforehand. So today I'm going to attempt to answer the rest of the questions. So that's what today's video topic is: more relaxed homeschooling questions answered. All right, let me say right off the bat that my live streams are always kind of like a whirlwind. I always have so much stuff going on in my mind at one time because I have people asking me questions, and then I'm trying to remember what I wanted to say originally. So if I repeat any questions that I already did on the live stream, forgive me. I'm sure that it can't hurt me answering the same question twice rather than missing some. So I'm just going to tell you that right away. Another thing that I want to add is that there might be questions here that I do not feel equipped to answer. If that is the case, I will tell you and I will try to point you in the right direction for where you would be able to get the answers to those questions. So let's get started. Okay, so the first question that I think that I missed last week was, what steps do you use before actually starting to alphabetize your kids? I think that means like starting to teach them their alphabet. Here we call this pre-alphabet phase. How is that for you? Do you use phonics method to teach to read? At what age? Okay, so I don't actually take any intentional steps before I start teaching my kids the alphabet. And the reason for that is because since I have so many children, my younger ones start to learn their letters just by watching their older siblings. So it isn't something that I myself have to actively teach my kids. A lot of times I will start off doing more structured school lessons with them, and they will already know a lot of the letters and a lot of the sounds simply by watching their older siblings. I think that even if they don't have older siblings, if they are exposed to these things in life, they are going to learn these letters really simply. And also, even if it's through something like watching, Sesame Street or any other type of children's programming, a lot of kids will learn to do things this way. So it's not something that I really put a lot of thought into. It just happens naturally with us. Now, asking if I start out using phonics with my kids and at what age. Well, it can really depend. If my children seem ready, I will start them with a phonics book. We usually use Adventures in Phonics through Christian Liberty Press. And I've been using that for years, probably almost 10 years now. Now, usually around 5, I will start doing Adventures in Phonics through Christian Liberty Press with my children. However, if I notice that my kids are not ready for it, for example, if they're crying a lot, if they're not retaining anything, I will stop and I will take a break and I will wait to watch for other signs for when they are ready to start doing these things. I think it's more important that you wait for the signs from your child than having an actual age on hand when you want to start. But yeah, rule of thumb for me is when they're ready. For my kids, it could be that they're doing phonics when they're 5, and other times it might be that they're doing phonics when they're 7. It's just where they're at developmentally. But yes, I do usually start phonics with them. What I have been doing is alternating actually between Adventures in Phonics and Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. They will do Adventures in Phonics one day, and the next day Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And then it just goes back and forth like that every single day. And I've noticed that it breaks up the monotony, because I think that if you're doing both Adventures in Phonics and Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, while they are both excellent resources, if you are doing them every single day, they can get to be a bit monotonous. So what I do like about combining the two is that for us, Adventures in Phonics is more of learning the writing skills of letters. They're still learning the sounds and how to spell words and everything, but it's more writing. Whereas Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons is also phonetic. It teaches letter sounds, but that is more of a hands-on thing. I don't do any writing with my kids with Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. It is all simply me sitting there and going over these words with my kids. So that's how I teach my kids their letters. How do you ease the transition from free play life learning to more structured learning and workbooks when needed? How do you deal with extracurricular activities? I want my kids to learn or experience everything, but I love our time at home and don't want to break the bank either. I get you there. All right. I might have actually answered this one as well, but just in case I didn't, I'm going to answer it now again. For me, I don't know. I've never really seemed to have a difficult time transitioning from free play and life learning to doing a little bit of more structured learning. I think the reason for that is because as a mom of many, my younger kids see their older kids, just like with learning the letters, my younger kids see their older siblings doing school. So very quickly, they do want to be a part of that. I will point out, though, that I do not go straight from play-based learning to all kinds of structured schoolwork. It is a very minimal amount of structured learning when I start with my kids. And then as they get older, I just add a little bit more at a time. So for example, if I have a child who, has turned 5 and is now technically in kindergarten, and if they are telling me that they want to do schoolwork like their older siblings, yes, of course I'll do that. But their math might be 5 minutes long. Their phonics might be 10 minutes long. And then I might do a read aloud. So it's really about 20 to 30 minutes of time. And a lot of times children will enjoy this time with you. They'll look at it as more of a game, and they'll feel big. They're big now, like their older siblings. So that is something that really helps when you have younger kids. Now, I know that I do have a question here about homeschooling an only child. That is one question that I honestly will not be able to answer, because since I have 11, I've never had the experience of homeschooling an only child. So I will leave a link in the description box. There is a website written by Jimmy Quick. She used to write about homeschooling her only daughter, and it's called notebookingfairy.com, which you can also get really good notebooking pages there too. But you might want to head over there and take a look around that website, because she did blog about homeschooling her only child. So I know that wasn't the question here, but I want to say that before I forget about it. So yeah, we didn't really have much of a transition. For us, it was more natural, but I think the really big thing is not trying to dump all this schoolwork on your child right away as soon as you want to start doing structured learning with them. Small steps. Remember that. Small steps, because you don't want to overload them, because that is going to immediately suck their joy out of learning, and you don't want that to happen. Okay. I'd like to know when private homeschooling, if the child is not progressing fast through curriculum, am I required to do anything special? No. Homeschooling is about tailoring the education, or the learning process to your child. So it's not a race. You simply do things at your child's own pace. Just work with them. Currently, he has an IEP in the public school, and I've been in prayer about homeschooling him. He's cognitively delayed. Okay. Yeah, I think that homeschooling would be a fantastic education for your child, in that they really will have everything tailored specifically to them. I will say that an IEP, now, I'm not sure how it works in other states, but I'm pretty sure it's about the same thing. An IEP in Pennsylvania will not do anything when you are homeschooling. The only thing that it will do, if your child has an IEP and you pull them out to start homeschooling them, what that is going to mean is more paperwork for you when you file for them, and you're going to have to jump through more hoops just because they have that IEP. But even though you have to jump through those hoops, the schools do not have to help you when you have an IEP and are homeschooling. And that is something that was pointed out to me right away with my son who had an IEP. They do not have to help your child. And in most cases, they will not, because they don't have the resources. They're only going to help the kids who are in the school setting. I know that HSLDA does talk about this on their website. So if you would want to head over there and look at what they have to say, because they say the same thing about IEPs. I do believe that there is something else that you can do for a child in place of an IEP, but honestly, again, I'm not the person to ask for that, because what I did was I simply had my son's IEP removed because I understood that the school was not going to help me. It was just in the long run going to give us more paperwork and more hardship. And as the parent, you can do that. You can request to have your child's IEP removed. Now, they might try to talk you out of this. Not because they're going to help you, but you have to remember that these schools receive funding for the amount of children that have IEPs. So very often, if they're trying to get you to keep your child's IEP, it's going to come down to money for them. So remember that. As the parent, you do have the right to have your child's IEP removed when you start homeschooling. Or even if they're still in school, you can actually have their IEP removed. I don't know if you would want to do that. Probably not, because they are still getting support then. But yes, when you're homeschooling, it might be a good idea, especially if it's something that you yourself think can be handled simply by, again, tailoring the curriculum around your child and letting them just learn at their own pace. I'm curious about what resources you use for the upper grades for science projects. Do you use kits or subscriptions? DIY? Also, for any subject this would go with. Thank you. Okay, for the upper grades, I'm assuming that you mean high school age. I don't use any kits or any of those sorts of things. My kids do like to look up experiments on YouTube and different activities on YouTube. They're also very hands-on and will come up with things on their own all the time. My motto is just keep your house stocked with all sorts of things, and you will be surprised at what your kids will come up to doing on their own. Now, with that being said, I should say this is my 14-year-old who does those sorts of things. My 17-year-old daughter really does prefer to learn through library books, through notebooking, through reading, and that is her preferred method of learning. So she will occasionally watch a video, and yes, she has been known to bring things in from outside when she was on nature study, and to bring them in the house and take them apart and look inside of them and look up what the parts were called. But we don't use anything in particular kit-wise. Now, a friend of mine, Jen McKinnon, she blogs over at practicalbydefault.com. She writes about kits a lot. I know that she gets a lot of subscription kits for her two kids who are also in high school. I will leave a link to her blog down below, because I'm pretty sure she gets the Steve Spangler science kits, and she gets some others. So you might be able to get some ideas from her blog as well. Should I be giving grades with early elementary? Well, you know, that really depends on a couple of things. First of all, if your state requires grades, then of course you should be keeping grades for your kids. If you do not live in a state that requires giving grades, you know, that is really up to you. Personally, I do not have to keep grades, first of all. And second of all, I prefer not to give them to my kids, just because I kind of look at them as a superficial throwback to the school system. Grades are not really worth much more than a pat on the back and like a little gold star. In the end, though, they don't really show what a child has accurately learned. Very often they will just show what the child knew in the moment, but they don't show long run the effect that the education has had on the child. That is just my personal opinion, though. I know that there are homeschoolers who give their kids grades. So if you do not live in a state that requires grades, you don't have to. But if it's something that you feel led to do, then you certainly could do that. My kids are first and second, and it seems like they don't know how to work independently. I have to sit there with each one separately, because math and language arts are different levels. It's a struggle. How do I work together with them, even if it's two different levels, and how do I get them to work on his or her own? Well, you know, I'm going to say that first and second grade, that's really young, and your child honestly might not be ready to do independent learning at that time. Because again, 6 and 7, it's a very young age. Now, I do have a second grader this year and a kindergartner. My second grader, the only thing that she will really do independently is spelling, because that is just her writing her words 3 times each. Even her math, even when she knows how to do it, she still likes when I sit there with her so that if she has a question, I'm right there and available to answer. And I do go through the same thing where I have my kindergartner and my second grader. They're both on different levels. And yeah, I do have to sit separately with the 2 of them. Now, I have already tried to do both of them at the same time, where one is working on phonics and the other one is working on her level of phonics. But what always inevitably happens is that as soon as one of them needs help with something, the other one will want help with something else as well. So for me, I found that it is more peaceful for me if I do my children separately for the same thing that you were talking about, for language arts and for math. I do. I work with them one-on-one for those 2 subjects separately. And I don't think that's unreasonable at that age. Now, if this is something that is really time consuming for you, you really do need to remember that at that age, they don't need to be spending a long time on the language arts and the math. Again, at that age, my kids are spending anywhere from, I'd say, maybe 10 minutes on phonics, and then possibly, now for my second grader, maybe like 10 or 15 minutes at the most on math. They do not need to be spending 45 minutes on each subject. So if that is the problem that you are having, you just need to remember, again, play is the most effective way for kids at this age to learn. And you might just want to shorten their lessons a little bit if that is what is holding you back from being able to work separately with them. And then I have a question for how to do grades. Well, I've already explained that I myself do not do grades. And I already explained why. And I'll link a video below where I actually explain further why I don't give grades. Now, when I first started homeschooling, I did give grades just because my kids had just gotten out of the school system. I, was thinking of that I was like playing school, so I wanted to do everything like school did. Plus my kids, they wanted report cards. They were used to getting report cards, so they asked for report cards. At that point in time, the only thing that I was doing to keep their grades was I would keep track of all of their test and quiz scores. And then I would keep track if they wrote any reports. And of course, these reports are things that you yourself have to grade. And a lot of times you can find writing rubrics online that will explain to you how schools assign different points, for points taken off for writing mechanics or, sentence structure. It explains how to grade essays and that sort of thing. But that is really the only things that I myself did for keeping grades was the test scores, the quizzes, and then any reports that they had written. If anyone that is watching this video does keep grades and can give a more detailed answer of how you yourself would do it, I would really appreciate it. If anybody has any other answers, any fuller answers to what I've given, I would love if you would leave a comment, because the people who watch this video just might browse through it and see exactly what it is that they're looking for. I'm going to just look through here one more time and make sure that I got everything, because I think that that is the rest of them. And I believe it is. If you notice that I missed your question, let me know in the comments and I will correct that. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work, you can check out my Patreon page and see what I have for my patrons there. And I hope you have a great day.